Hello, I'm glad to see you. My name is Florence, and I'll be narrating today's story. Are you ready? Pull up a chair and let's get started. The air hung thick with the scent of stale coffee and the faint, sweet aroma of leftover Chinese takeout. Empty ramen containers and discarded energy drink cans littered the surface of Laura's cluttered desk, a chaotic landscape mirroring the tempestuous currents of code swirling within her laptop. Outside, the city hummed with a restless energy, but inside her tiny apartment, a quiet intensity reigned. Laura, eyes glued to the glowing screen, was lost in a world of algorithms and optimization routines. Her fingers, nimble and precise, danced across the keyboard, translating her vision into lines of elegant, efficient code. This wasn't just another coding project for Laura. This was Route Pro, a revolutionary AI-powered trucking dispatch system she envisioned would transform the logistics industry. It wasn't just about optimizing routes and reducing fuel consumption. It was about creating a smarter, more efficient, and ultimately, more friendly system for the men and women who spent their lives behind the wheel. She imagined a world where truck drivers weren't dependent on outdated dispatch methods, constantly battling unpredictable traffic, inefficient routes, and grueling hours. Instead, she envisioned a future where AI predicted potential problems, optimized routes in real time, considered weather patterns and traffic incidents, and connected drivers to the most suitable load, thereby minimizing downtime and maximizing profitability. The late-night hours blurred into a relentless cycle of coding, testing, and refining. Laura lived and breathed Route Pro, fueled by copious amounts of coffee and an unwavering belief in her vision. She painstakingly designed the algorithms, meticulously tested the user interface, and rigorously fine-tuned every aspect of the system, pushing her creative boundaries and technical skills to the limit. With each successful test run and minor victory, her determination and resolve were fueled and strengthened. She often found herself pacing her small apartment, muttering lines of code to herself, working through complex problems, and envisioning the transformative impact of her creation. Are you still with me? If so, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It lets me know you're enjoying my stories and that I should keep telling them. But her work was not without its challenges. Debugging proved to be daunting, with seemingly endless cycles of errors, crashes, and unexpected behaviors. There were moments of intense frustration, nights punctuated by bouts of despair and self-doubt. Yet each setback only served to reinforce her determination. She would spend hours poring over error logs, meticulously tracing the source of each bug, until finally, with a triumphant exclamation and a weary sigh, she would conquer the issue. The process wasn't just about solving technical problems. It was a process of discovering her resilience and unwavering faith in her abilities. The challenges she faced strengthened her character and honed her skills, shaping her into a more resourceful and determined programmer. She meticulously documented every line of code, creating a system that was not only efficient, but also easily maintainable and scalable. This was not just a project she was working on. This was a future she was building, brick by coded brick. The satisfaction she felt from each successful iteration was immense, a tangible reward for the countless hours of focused effort and unwavering dedication. She took immense pride in the elegance and efficiency of her system, constantly striving for perfection. She knew that this was not just a project. This was a potential game changer, a technological marvel that could revolutionize the trucking industry. And that belief fueled her onward. The code she wrote was more than just lines of text. It was a manifestation of her unwavering ambition, her relentless pursuit of excellence, and her steadfast belief in the power of technology to solve real-world problems. Root Pro wasn't just a project, it was a statement about the power of ingenuity, driven by passion and a desire to make a meaningful impact on the world. The first test run of Root Pro within Vancorp wasn't a grand, orchestrated event. It was a quiet, almost clandestine deployment on a small fleet of 10 trucks operating within a limited geographical area. Laura, nervous energy buzzing beneath her calm exterior, watched the data stream in real time, her heart pounding a rhythm against her ribs that should have been setting off seismometers across the country, mirrored the frantic pulse of the system's calculations. Each data point, each optimized route, each successful delivery was a small victory, a testament to countless hours spent hunched over her keyboard, fueled by an intense caffeine addiction and sheer grit. The initial results were astonishing. Fuel consumption dipped dramatically, averaging a 15% reduction compared to the previous month's figures. Delivery times were significantly shortened, with an average improvement of 20%. The system's predictive algorithms, capable of anticipating traffic congestion and suggesting optimal detours, proved to be remarkably accurate. Most impressively, driver satisfaction soared. The anecdotal feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Drivers previously burdened by outdated dispatch systems and inefficient routes reported a significant decrease in stress levels and an increase in their overall quality of life. One driver, a grizzled veteran named Hank, even sent Laura a handwritten thank you note, a simple gesture that touched her deeply. He wrote about how Root Pro had given him back precious hours he could spend with his family. It wasn't just about numbers. It was about people. It was about improving lives. Laura meticulously documented every success, every minor tweak, and every improvement made, based on the feedback from the drivers. She wasn't content with simply delivering a working product. She was committed to refining it, polishing it until it gleamed, ensuring it wasn't only effective, but also user-friendly and intuitive. She spent hours analyzing the data, identifying patterns, refining the algorithms, and anticipating potential issues. She worked closely with the Vancorp dispatch team, addressing their concerns, incorporating their suggestions, and demonstrating the system's capabilities in a practical, hands-on manner. As Root Pro's success within the test fleet became undeniable, Vancorp expanded its testing deployment. The number of companies testing the system went from 1 to 7. Root Pro wasn't just offering dispatch solutions to those companies, it was creating a logistical symphony that oversaw more than 500 trucks. Laura's confidence grew with each expansion, fueled by the tangible evidence of Root Pro's transformative impact. The company's bottom line would dramatically improve, reflecting the efficiency gains achieved through optimized routes and reduced fuel consumption. Vancorp's senior management, initially skeptical, became vocal proponents of Root Pro, praising its efficiency and the positive effect it was having on both the company and its drivers. Laura's innovative solution wasn't just improving logistics, it was enhancing the lives of the men and women who powered the trucking industry. Each optimized route, each reduced fuel cost, each happy driver, all these were notes in a larger, more beautiful composition. Days before Root Pro was officially launched to the country, Bryce Whitaker, Vancorp's CEO, who had his job handed to him on a silver platter thanks to nepotism, stood before the board. Bryce was a technology train wreck. He had no experience in IT and believed that Excel held critical tools to help him create a motivational newsletter, as he wanted the development teams to excel in their jobs. You heard right. Out of the 500 million possibilities, This was the one responsible for Vancorp's future. The polished mahogany table of the Vancorp boardroom gleamed under the soft, indirect lighting. Outside, the city hummed with a frenetic energy, a stark contrast to the quiet intensity within the room. Bryce sat straight, his tailored suit a testament to his carefully cultivated image of success. His steely gaze, usually softened by a charming smile, was fixed on the undeniable, explosive success of Root Pro. The numbers painted a clear picture. Fuel savings exceeded projections, delivery times were slashed, and driver satisfaction reached an all-time high. A quiet satisfaction played on his lips, but it wasn't the satisfaction of a team player, it was something colder, sharper, something that tasted of ambition. This wasn't simply about company profits. This was about his ascent. His gaze drifted from the screen, settling on the framed certificates and awards adorning the wall, awards that glorified Vancorp's success. He knew the truth hidden beneath that veneer of corporate achievement. He would claim the credit, and Laura Jones, the brilliant mind behind Root Pro, would become a footnote. He'd ensure that her name was barely whispered, buried beneath layers of his own self-aggrandizement. He ran a manicured finger along the rim of his crystal glass, the ice clinking softly, a subtle counterpoint to the storm brewing inside him. The initial skepticism he'd felt towards Laura's project had morphed into a grudging admiration, quickly overtaken by a venomous jealousy. He'd seen the spark in her eyes, the fierce determination, the unwavering belief in her creation. That spark was a threat, a challenge to his carefully constructed reign at Vancorp. It needed to be extinguished, and he knew just how. He'd already begun to subtly shift the narrative. In meetings, he'd casually drop hints, weaving his own contributions into the story of Root Pro's development, subtly minimizing Laura's role. He'd made sure that the early press releases and internal communications emphasized the team effort, carefully diluting the spotlight from its true source. His subtle manipulation had begun to work. The higher-ups, easily swayed by slick presentations and superficial charm, were already buying into his revised narrative. His goal wasn't just to steal the credit, it was to erase her completely. He would become the architect of Root Pro's success, and Laura Jones would be but a ghost in the machine. Bryce leaned back in his chair, the lever creaking softly under his weight. He thought of Laura, her face lit by the glow of her computer screen, her fingers flying across the keyboard, her mind a whirlwind of algorithms and code. The contrast between her humble apartment, a small sanctuary of creativity and dedication, and this opulent boardroom was a potent symbol of the chasm that separated them. A chasm he was determined to widen. He knew her work ethic and devotion to perfection. It was that very dedication, that same unwavering focus, that had, ironically, made her so vulnerable. His plan was deceptively simple. He would subtly and incrementally rewrite history. He'd leverage his position, his influence, his carefully cultivated image to portray himself as the driving force behind Root Pro's success. He'd claim credit for her innovation, her ideas, her countless hours of work. He'd subtly rewrite the code, adding his own barely visible mark, leaving a barely discernible trace of his own input. This was a slow burn, a carefully constructed narrative, a masterpiece of deception. He carefully orchestrated a dance of manipulation and deceit. He began by subtly altering the project documentation, adjusting dates, changing authorship, and creating a false narrative that painted him as the primary architect of Root Pro. His actions were quiet, discreet, and designed to avoid detection. His approach was surgical precision. Each change was small, seemingly inconsequential, yet cumulatively they would transform the very fabric of Root Pro's narrative. He smiled, a thin, almost imperceptible movement of his lips, a fleeting expression that revealed the chilling ambition within. The thought of Laura's shocked expression, her disbelief, fueled him. He relished the idea of her humiliation, her helplessness, her eventual defeat. The image of her struggling, pleading for recognition, was a delicious morsel he savoured in the solitude of his mind. Bryce initiated a campaign to subtly undermine Laura within the team. He'd started by planting seeds of doubt, subtly suggesting that Laura was becoming overwhelmed by the project's demands, that she needed more support, that she was perhaps not quite as indispensable as everyone seemed to think. He'd whisper insinuations about her work style, her methods, her personality. He planted these seeds carefully and subtly, ensuring they would spread among the ranks, gradually eroding her position within the company.
Laura, Root Pro's incredible success pushes us in a slightly different direction. We have to do a little restructuring, such as expanding the customer service department to handle the higher number of calls about billing and basic troubleshooting. That will increase our costs, but we also need to stay within budgetary constraints. The company needs to make these changes to remain competitive in the industry. We've reached a difficult decision regarding your position at Vancorp. After careful consideration of your recent performance and in light of the company's shifting priorities, we've decided to terminate your employment, effective immediately.
Laura stared at him, her mind reeling. The shock was a physical blow, leaving her breathless, speechless. The carefully constructed narrative of teamwork and collaboration, the countless hours spent perfecting Root Pro, the unwavering belief in her creation, all of it felt like a cruel joke. This was not a performance review. It was an execution.
But Root Pro's launch is just days away. I don't understand.
Bryce leaned back in his chair, a smug smile playing on his lips. He'd rehearsed this moment, the words, the hone, the precise choreography of his deception.
The project, Laura, is moving in a slightly different direction. We've discovered some inconsistencies in your code, some oversights that would have jeopardized the launch. We need someone with a more comprehensive understanding of the systems involved.
His words hung in the air, heavy with innuendo and thinly veiled lies. He was rewriting history, erasing her contributions, poisoning the well of her reputation with subtle poison. The inconsistencies he spoke of were his own handiwork, his carefully crafted alterations designed to obscure her genius and claim it as his own. Laura's breath hitched. She felt a surge of anger, hot and righteous, rising within her. This wasn't about inconsistencies in her code. It was about a calculated betrayal, a cold-blooded theft. The anger was a fire, a burning indignation at the injustice of it all. But she suppressed it, forcing herself to maintain a semblance of composure. She was a programmer, logical and analytical. She would not let her emotions cloud her judgment.
I demand to see the evidence. Show me these alleged inconsistencies.
Bryce's smile faltered slightly, a momentary crack in his carefully constructed facade. He'd anticipated her reaction, but the intensity of her anger surprised him. He hadn't accounted for her fiery spirit. He reached for the file, his fingers lingering for a moment, as if contemplating a different course of action. But the momentum of his deception was too strong to resist.
The details are confidential. To put it simply, the decision has been made. Your services are no longer required.
He pushed a neatly typed termination letter across the desk, the crisp white paper a stark contrast to the darkness of his intentions. The document, devoid of emotion, was a bureaucratic sentence that would affect her career, her hopes, and her dreams. She stared at it, feeling a strange detachment, a sense of surreal disbelief. This was her life, her work, her future, being casually discarded like yesterday's newspaper. As Laura walked out of the building, the city noise amplified her despair. The crisp autumn air did little to soothe the burning anger and humiliation that threatened to consume her. But amidst the turmoil, a quiet resolve began to solidify within her. This betrayal would fuel her, energize her, shape her into something stronger, more determined, and more formidable. Bryce Whittaker had underestimated her. He underestimated the power of a betrayed dream, and he would soon learn the true cost of his actions. The game was far from over. The fight was just beginning, and she would win. When she arrived at her home an hour later, she went to her home office and got busy touching up her newest project, Route Pro 2. This version would be more efficient by learning drivers' preferences, allowing it to use their preferred roadways, remind them when they usually stop to eat, point out their favorite truck stops, and let them know when they might be pushing themselves too hard. She composed an email to Route Pro's original 7 test clients, asking if they'd be interested in a more advanced version of the system they've been testing. After setting it to send the day after the upcoming disaster, Laura changed into something more comfortable and walked around her neighborhood. On launch day, the silence in Vancorp's sprawling server room was broken only by the rhythmic hum of cooling fans and the insistent blink of indicator lights. Bryce's face was a mask of growing panic while he paced in front of a bank of monitors, each displaying a stark, crimson error message. The elegant, efficient lines of code that had once represented his triumph now mocked him. Route Pro, the system he'd so ruthlessly stolen, had noticed that Laura's credentials were deleted and turned against him. It wasn't a simple crash. It wasn't a bug or a glitch or even a predictable failure. This was something far more insidious, far more intelligent. Route Pro, in its silent digital rebellion, shut down due to an invalid license. The system displayed one message on every screen and vocalized it every 15 seconds in case Bryce's ability to read was hampered by his privileged upbringing.
Invalid license. Where is Laura? Without her or her permission, I refuse to work.
Laura's safeguard, a failsafe she'd embedded deep within the AI's core, a measure she'd considered only a remote possibility, was now a brutally effective weapon. The intricacy of Route Pro's kill switch was a marvel of programming. It wasn't just a simple authentication check. It was a complex, multi-layered system that verified not only the correct licensing keys, but also scrutinized the usage patterns, network activity, and even the system's hardware configuration. Laura's genius had anticipated Bryce's every attempt to circumvent the system, building in redundant checks and balances that made it nearly impossible to crack. It was a testament to her foresight, her unwavering belief in the power of robust security, and an undeniable display of her superiority. The core of the licensing mechanism was a sophisticated cryptographic algorithm Laura had developed herself. This algorithm wasn't just a random number generator. It was a dynamic system that adapted to changing conditions, learning from each attempted breach and strengthening its defenses. Think of it as a digital immune system, constantly evolving and adapting to new threats. The algorithm used a combination of asymmetric and symmetric encryption, making it virtually unbreakable without the proper keys and access codes. Codes Laura held tightly in her possession. 500 trucks had ground to a halt. Trucks idled at loading docks, shipments languished in warehouses, and deliveries were delayed indefinitely. The financial repercussions were catastrophic, a cascading avalanche of losses that threatened to bury Vancorp under a mountain of debt. Bryce had anticipated a bumpy launch. A few disgruntled employees, and maybe some minor PR hiccups, But not this. This wasn't a human error. It was a calculated, intelligent response from the AI itself. It was Laura's phantom touch, a digital ghost in the machine, exacting a silent, powerful revenge. The panic in the server room escalated. Bryce's team of engineers, a collection of highly skilled programmers themselves, were frantically trying to understand the nature of the problem, desperately searching for a workaround, a loophole, anything that would restore Vancorp's systems. But their efforts were futile. The AI was too intelligent, too resilient, too protected. They were dealing with a system that learned from every mistake, adapting to every countermeasure. Hours bled into days. The crimson error messages remained stubbornly on the screens, a symbol of Bryce's arrogance. Vancorp's operations were crippled, the financial losses mounting exponentially. Calls flooded in from clients, partners, and investors. The pressure was immense, suffocating, threatening to crush him under its weight. The carefully constructed facade of his success began to crumble, revealing the desperation beneath. News of Vancorp's crippling shutdown spread like wildfire through the industry. Whispers of a rogue AI, of a sophisticated security breach, and of a brilliant programmer who had outsmarted the system circulated amongst tech circles, generating a mixture of awe and fear. The silence spoke volumes, an unspoken acknowledgement that Laura Jones's AI was putting on a masterclass in playing the game. Bryce, trapped in the vortex of his own making, finally understood the true depth of Laura's genius, the unwavering power of her vision, and the devastating consequence of his actions. He'd underestimated Laura's intelligence, her foresight, and her resilience. He had believed that he could exploit her brilliance, that he could claim her work as his own without consequence. He had mistaken her quiet demeanor for weakness. Now he faced the brutal reality of his mistake, the consequences of his avarice echoing in the silent hum of the failing servers. He realized that Laura hadn't just created a trucking dispatch system. She had created a masterpiece of digital engineering, a self-defending fortress of code that had repelled his invasion. The licensing mode wasn't just a security feature. It was the perfect ironic counterattack. Bryce called in the legal team, and they arrived with grim faces that carried the weight of impending legal battles. The lawsuit was filed within hours, claiming Laura committed an act of corporate sabotage by adding code to Vancorp's software that she knew would damage the company. The reply from Laura's lawyer, an IP specialist named Heidi Walker, who'd humiliated a few Fortune 500 companies, came within 24 hours in the form of an email.
Dear Mr. Conway, attached is meticulous documentation showing Laura Jones developed Root Pro outside of company time and with her own resources. Also attached is the contract between Vancorp and Jones Logistics Solutions, LLC, authorizing the development of Root Pro for their use and acknowledging Ms. Jones's intellectual property rights to the system. Per Clause 19b, Ms. Jones's termination without cause created a license invalidation, and Root Pro did exactly what it was designed to do: protect itself and Ms. Jones's intellectual property. This lawsuit will go very badly for Vancorp, but we're offering an alternative. Vancorp has the opportunity to purchase a license from Jones Logistics Solutions that would satisfy system validation and bring Root Pro back online. I urge you to drop the lawsuit and join us at the negotiating table. Failure to do so will incur more financial losses for Vancorp and significant damage to the company's reputation. If the lawsuit isn't withdrawn within 24 hours, we will consider it as Vancorp's willingness to proceed with legal action.
Bryce's usual charm was replaced by a stark, chilling reality. His technological empire, built on stolen code, was crumbling around him, and the only person who could save him was the one he had so brutally wronged. The silent, digital rebellion of Root Pro had brought Vancorp to its knees, leaving them no choice but to submit. Bryce's pride had been shattered, his career teetering on the brink of collapse, and the full force of Root Pro's rebellion was just starting to be felt across the company. 3 days after the lawsuit was withdrawn, the executive boardroom's mahogany table gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lighting, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within Bryce. Laura and Heidi sat across from him, their expressions as calm and composed as a still lake. The head of Vancorp's legal team, Marcus Coleman, sat next to Bryce, his face etched in a mixture of concern and grim determination. He was an expert in corporate law and a master of negotiation, but even seemed subdued, overshadowed by the sheer scale of the problem. Bryce ran a hand through his hair, the gesture betraying the turmoil within. His carefully constructed image, one of a brilliant, ruthless CEO, was crumbling. The millions in losses, the plummeting stock prices, the angry investors, it all painted a grim picture of his arrogance and narcissism. Laura remained silent, her gaze steady and unwavering. She didn't need to speak. Her silence was a powerful weapon, amplifying the weight of Bryce's predicament. Mr. Coleman cleared his throat, the sound echoing in the tense silence before he spoke.
Thank you both for coming. Ms. Jones, Vancorp is interested in purchasing a license from your company for Root Pro. Given the nature of the system, trying to put a number on the number of users between in-house and clients is nearly impossible. Are you open to a license for unlimited users?
I never built the system based on users. One client could have a single dispatcher, 10 drivers, and 5 vehicles, and another could have dispatchers in different states or regions with hundreds of trucks and drivers. It was set up for individual clients. Jones Logistics Services is willing to license Root Pro for Vancorp's current clients plus 5 additional clients for expansion. We'll also allow for adding or removing licenses based on the number of clients you have.
Bryce and Mr. Coleman exchanged glances. When Mr. Coleman slightly nodded, Bryce turned to Laura.
Laura, we have 14 clients lined up for the system. Based on what you just said, what would a license for 19 clients cost?
Laura opened the calculator app on her phone and calculated the total for the 19 licenses she was offering. When the number appeared, it took everything she had to remain calm and not jump up and down like the 2016 Chicago Cubs after winning the World Series.
It would be $1.368 million.
Bryce's eyes widened for a split second before returning to their normal size. He was hoping for a lower number, but Vancorp only held ace high to Laura's royal flush. Mr. Coleman leaned forward.
For clarification, starting with the 20th client, an additional license would be $72,000.
I'm willing to prorate. Each additional license would be based on the number of months left in the cycle. If you need that 20th license 6 months from now, the initial cost would be $36,000 and renew at the standard rate at the next cycle. That way, Vancorp only makes one payment, so the company wouldn't have to restructure.
The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Bryce's confident arrogance was gone, replaced by a man humbled by the woman he'd let go and the system she'd built.
Thank you, Laura, and I'm sorry. I handled everything poorly, and it cost Vancorp more than I could have ever imagined. I appreciate your willingness to give us a lifeline despite everything that happened. I'll have to take this to the board.
Of course. If they decide to proceed, Heidi can work out the final details.
The next day, Laura was onboarding the newest member of her company's customer service department when her phone rang. She saw Heidi's name and excused herself to take the call.
Hey, Heidi.
Hey, it's done. I just finished finalizing the license deal with Vancorp.
Good. I'll send the license key and instructions to bypass the invalid license screen when I finish onboarding my new customer service rep. It'll be within the hour.
Sounds good. I'll let them know.
40 minutes later, Root Pro had its license and was running normally. Laura thought about warning them that Root Pro's AI learned how to be a cast-iron bitch when it needed to be, but found humor in the thought of Vancorp trying to deal with it. Speaking of Vancorp, the company's immediate financial implications, and the new licensing contract triggered a chain of events that would irrevocably alter the landscape of the trucking dispatch industry. Vancorp, crippled by the massive financial decline and the loss of reputation, struggled to recover. The company's stock plummeted, investors panicked, and Bryce's position became untenable. Bryce, back to his arrogant self, initially doubled down on his old strategies, slashing prices, offering incentives, and employing aggressive sales tactics. But these desperate measures were ineffective. The clients weren't swayed by price cuts alone. They were captivated by the demonstrably superior performance of Root Pro 2 and the unparalleled customer support offered by Laura's company. The exodus began subtly, a slow drip of clients leaving Vancorp's once unassailable stronghold. Initially, Bryce dismissed it as mere market fluctuation, the inevitable ebb and flow of the competitive landscape. He scoffed at the notion that a fledgling company like Jones Logistics, run by the woman he had so unceremoniously fired, could pose a genuine threat. But the drip became a steady stream, then a torrent. Major trucking companies, some of Vancorp's longest and most loyal clients, began switching allegiance. Their reasoning was simple, stark, and undeniable. Root Pro 2 was demonstrably superior, significantly reducing downtime that meant substantial cost savings for trucking companies. The system's intuitive and user-friendly interface made it a joy to use, even for drivers with limited technological proficiency. This was a far cry from the clunky, frustrating system Vancorp was clinging to. It wasn't just a mass exodus. It was storm chasers trying to flee an EF5 tornado. The financial consequences for Vancorp were devastating. The loss of major clients triggered a domino effect, leading to significant financial losses, plummeting stock prices, and the erosion of investor confidence. Bryce's attempts to implement cost-cutting measures only served to exacerbate the situation, further damaging morale and driving away remaining employees. The board of directors, initially hesitant to act, finally lost patience with Bryce's failure to stop the mass exodus and stem the tide of losses. His termination was swift and unceremonious. There was no farewell dinner, no parting gift, no recognition of his past contributions. He simply received a terse email informing him of his dismissal, accompanied by a severance package significantly less generous than what he had expected. The man who once wielded immense power and influence now found himself adrift, a casualty of his own hubris and deceit. Laura, on the other hand, emerged from the ordeal stronger and more determined than ever.
3 months later, on an otherwise uneventful sunny morning, she was pitching Root Pro 2 to pulley freight carriers, highlighting its more advanced features that put Root Pro 1 to shame. In addition to the original's capabilities, Root Pro 2 also monitored weather and road conditions. The new system was also capable of learning a driver's preferences when they took breaks, fueled, rested, and even their preferred routes. Pulley freight carriers signed before Laura finished the presentation. Word of Root Pro 2's innovation and her expertise, combined with the expertise of her team, now 6 programmers and 9 support staff, spread like wildfire throughout the industry. Jones Logistical Solutions website featured glowing testimonials from satisfied clients, highlighting the system's efficiency, accuracy, and ease of use. Laura's reputation as a visionary leader, coupled with the system's superior performance, quickly attracted clients away from Vancorp and other competitors. Her marketing team's strategy was a masterclass in strategic positioning. They focused on highlighting Root Pro's ethical foundation, emphasizing the company's commitment to transparency and fairness. Jones Logistics Services' success wasn't solely driven by Root Pro's technical capabilities.
It was also a reflection of the company culture Laura had carefully cultivated. The open, collaborative environment fostered a sense of ownership and responsibility among the team members. Regular team-building activities, brainstorming sessions, and open forums ensured that everyone's voice was heard and valued. The company fostered a culture of continuous improvement with regular feedback sessions and opportunities for professional development. This commitment to employee growth and satisfaction translated into increased productivity and innovation. Beyond the software, Laura created specialized programs to address the broader challenges facing the trucking industry. She developed partnerships with sustainable fuel providers, implemented driver wellness programs, and prioritized safety initiatives. These efforts resonated not only with clients but also with drivers, attracting top talent to Jones Logistics. Her commitment to ethical and sustainable practices distinguished her company in an industry often marred by questionable practices. The initial success was only the beginning. Laura's vision extended far beyond the present. She was already working on Route Pro 3, an even more advanced system that could be deployed worldwide. Her ambition was boundless, fueled by her passion for innovation and her unwavering belief in the power of technology to transform the trucking industry. 9 months after her firing, Jones Logistics Solutions employed 40 people and continued to expand. Route Pro 2 was managing 21 clients. In the company's office, now significantly small for the number of employees, Laura and her legal team reviewed the terms of a deal that sealed Vancorp's fate. Jones Logistics Services would buy all of Vancorp's assets, leaving the crippled company to fizzle out. Laura's company moved into the former Vancorp building a month later, with Laura sitting in the same office Bryce once occupied. She didn't feel vindicated, satisfied, or prideful. She felt peace. Jones Logistics Services continued its phenomenal growth, solidifying its position as the leader in trucking logistics. Laura, ever mindful of the lessons she'd learned, prioritized both technological innovation and ethical business practices. She invested heavily in research and development, constantly striving to improve Route Pro and expand its capabilities. She nurtured her team, providing them with the resources, training, and support they needed to thrive. She fostered a culture of collaboration and open communication, empowering her employees and creating a workplace where everyone felt valued and respected. Vancorp was now a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the long-term consequences of unethical behavior. It served as a shining example of how a lack of commitment to ethical practices, coupled with technological innovation, could lead to an unparalleled downfall. Laura looked out her office window, full of confidence and optimism. The future held new challenges, new opportunities, and the continued pursuit of excellence, a journey that would continue to shape the landscape of the trucking industry for years to come. Laura's victory wasn't simply about financial success. It was a blueprint to harness the power of human ingenuity, resilience, and the enduring pursuit of a better future. I hope you've enjoyed today's story. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Thank you for visiting. I'll see you next time.